If you want to be a great golfer, you have to go to the driving range. If you want to be a great chef, you have to go into the kitchen. If you want to be a writer, even if it's not a great writer, but you want to finish it, you have to force yourself to do the things that sometimes you'd rather not do.
Exactly. Yeah, you just got to push yourself. I love it.
Exactly.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage.
Okay, everyone. So they say write what you know. But what if what you know is forensic analytics, business consulting, and the intricate art of unraveling financial mysteries? Well, AJ Tyler took this advice to heart, channeling decades of real world investigative experience into his debut thriller, Death Insured, where his protagonist navigates murder, manipulation, and the dangerous dance between justice and revenge. On today's episode, we're going to explore how Tyler's analytical mind became his greatest storytelling asset. Without further ado, Andy, welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you so much, Danielle, for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and to talk about the book and the process. It's lifelong pursuit, and now that it's done, I'm pursuing another one. So,
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. And it's something that you've always wanted to do, even since you were 16. So I heard ever since you read Johnny Got His Gun. So I'm wondering what exactly about that book made you realize you wanted to be an author?
when I read Trumbo's book, Johnny Got His Gun, those that don't know it, it's an astoundingly well-written novel. It's the story of a soldier wounded in World War I. He loses his sight, his hearing, his ability to communicate, and the entire book is told through the thought in the injured soldier's head. And I saw the power of words and the way that they could move people, transport you into someone's head, to other parts of the world, wherever it may be that you want to go, and escape from the challenges of life, or maybe help you focus on the challenges of life. When I saw that, I said, I want to write, at some point, I'm going to write a novel.
Right, and well, here you are now, and I think it's great because you were inspired by transporting somebody into another life, into another world, but Alan Miller, your protagonist, kind of reflects your own life, as I said in the introduction a little bit. So it's kind of a funny back and forth then. You inserted your own reality into it.
I did. It's funny because people will ask me who are the characters based on. Alan Miller is loosely based on me. My background is I was a CPA, I was an attorney, I ran a big accounting firm, I did business transactions, and that will come out actually in the next book because the next book is about a transaction gone bad and there's murder involved. But along the way, I pulled pieces and parts of Alan Miller from other people as well. But it wasn't just my business life that I pulled from, it was also my personal life. The story behind Death Insured is there's a company that's buying life insurance policies, what they call viatical, from people that need money. They set up a charity as a sister company to the company buying the viaticals, and that charity finds out the people who are ill, either chronically ill or terminally ill, and kills them in an undetectable way. So basically, it's like betting on when you're going to die, and they know when you're going to die because they're bringing it about. Um, Part of it was spurred by the request by a client many years ago to research viaticals. The other part was spurred by a little bit of personal tragedy. My wife passed away from cancer many years ago, and along the way learned a lot about the disease, the costs to take care of yourself, and the burdens on the family, and was able to weave some of that into the story as well. So,
Well, first off, I'm really sorry to hear about your wife, but it's I guess a learning experience in a way because you're able to kind of, use that in your book as well. So it's always something to think about too. But very interesting how you're able to use those experiences and weave them in such a compelling way. And a very creative idea for the most part. I mean, it's definitely something I wouldn't have quite thought of myself. Really amazing stuff. And your book also does explore a bunch of different themes, of course, the line between justice and vengeance.
Sure.
So I'm wondering why that moral complexity in itself.
Well, the first thing I think people need to understand, and this is the lawyer part of my brain, that justice is really an amorphous concept. If somebody is murdered, nothing that the courts or the police do will bring them back. So there's justice is not necessarily served. I mean, you do, if you catch the murderer, you put them in jail and they serve either life sentence or they're executed, whatever the outcome may be. But that doesn't make it any better for the victims. So in the book, one of the things that we deal with is that Maria Otero, who is part of the scheme that's killing people, she's been wronged in her lifetime. Her degree of justice comes through the vengeance of being able to abuse others or punish others for the pain that people have caused her. Um, it's a complicated process. When I was writing the book, I was always on the horns of a dilemma of how sympathetic do you want to make a murderer because they're securing vengeance. But at the end of the day, each person will view the whole process through the lens of how they see the world, whether it's justice, it's vengeance, it's justified or not justified.
Understood. And that's very compelling because I think, in a way, we all can kind of relate to that, to some extent, which I think is what makes the book so, compelling in itself. And you did mention it's the first in a planned series. You actually began to speak a little bit about the sequel already. So what exactly, without giving too much away, can we be excited for the other books in the series?
So in the next book, actually, I'm working on two books at the same time. One is another book in the Alan Miller series, and the third one I will talk about in a minute. But the next book in the Alan Miller series is called Debt Discharged. It's a story about a transaction that I was actually involved in, and the transaction went sideways. There was no murder, but there was a way to weave in murder, a little more vengeance, and even some plot twists that I don't think anyone would expect, similar to Death Insured, because I have friends that are reading the book now and they'll call me and say, wow, I read the book. I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought this was going to happen. I said, you know what? Until you're done, it's never over. And the roller coaster ride is an ongoing thing in each of the books.
Understood. I love that. And it's really cool to know you're going to have those twists in terms of those unexpected events because that's what really, keeps readers going. And I'm sure that's what a lot of us love about the first book, too. But since this is an author's podcast, I'd like to talk a little bit about the writing process itself. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, you went from writing business plans to writing fiction. How did you make that leap? I'm sure that was a huge transition.
Well, as I said, I always wanted to do this, and I have throughout my apartment, I have folders with handwritten notes or handwritten pages, sometimes 20, 30, 40 pages of stories I started and didn't finish. Death Insured was one of them. It was the easiest one to pick up and run with. During COVID, when the business world was shut down. You couldn't do anything but walk outside, get some fresh air, and go back in. I got up one morning and said, you know what? I want to finish one of my books. I want to get one written. And so every morning I would get up and I'd spend 2 or 3 hours in front of a computer and say, okay, I'm going to write a chapter. I'm going to write a paragraph. I'm going to write a sentence today, but I'm going to write something. And as I was writing, I had friends who were reading the chapters and they gave me an enormous amount of encouragement. Oh, this is really good. When am I getting the next chapter? I get the same thing now with the book. The people who have read it said, hey, when's the next book coming out? What happens with Alan Miller and Larry Shapiro? What happens with this? What happens with that? And that is, I guess, the fuel that keeps me going. People tell me stories. I make a mental note and say, okay, I'm going to add that to the story somehow. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure out a way to weave it in. Having written business plans, there was very little room for exciting prose. I mean, you had to describe a new business that was raising money. You had to come up with unique ways to describe what you were doing and how you were going to market. But at the end of the day, there wasn't the creativity that I so wanted to put into my writing. So this was an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, creativity for sure is a huge describer of all of this, from the twists and the turns and the unique themes that you're playing with here. You need that creative spark. But I think what really sparked my interest that you were just talking about is the fact that you were running chapters by your friends, kind of having a beta read throughout the entire writing process. Is that correct?
Yes, I had 2 or 3 people. Even now, when I'm writing the next one, there are a couple of friends who I'll say, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna send you a chapter. Tell me if this is of interest to you." Because what I think is good to me, what I may believe is a great story, may not be a great story to a bulk of readers. I have a lot of people that'll say to me, "I'd love to write a book. How did you do this?" And I'll say, "Every day, just get up and write." And they'll say, "I have a great story. I have a friend that just went through a horrendous personal situation, and I think the story's amazing." And I said, "I will help you write it when you're ready." But the thing is, it was also emotionally draining, and it could be years before they write it. And when they do, they're not going to remember a lot of it. So I say every day, get up and journal, get up and write, get up and do something if you really want to write a book and just put it on paper. And I literally handwrite every chapter. And then I
No
have,
way.
yeah, yes, I have pads of paper all over the place. And people laugh because they'll walk into my place and they'll see a bunch of folders. What's that? Oh, that's the next book. That's the book after. And it's all handwritten notes and it's scribbled and it's edited. And then I sit and type it. So.
So that's very interesting. I'm sure you get a lot of like raised eyebrows with that approach, being now that you could literally just dictate it to a computer and you don't even need to use your hands at all. So, what about the paper and pen method do you think helps you most? Is it the tactile feeling of writing it, the scent of the paper? What exactly is
I think more than anything, it's stream of conscience. Once I start
it?
writing, I can't type as fast as I can think. And I don't know when I start dictating, the problem is when you're dictating the paragraphs, you have to add punctuation and grammar and things like that. I just want to go. And as I'm writing, the pen starts flying across the paper. And the next thing I know, I look down and it's 7, 8, 9, 10 pages. Like, oh, there's a chapter. So for me, it's easier to do that. I'm sure there's probably a better way, and authors will tell, "Oh, that's you're wasting all your time. Why are you doing it that way?" Because it does take me a little longer to finish a book that way, but I get the book that I want when I'm finished. So
Yeah, well, everybody has their own method and you've
yeah.
found what works for you. And even though, the trees might be crying for all the papers, it's a process that helps you. And I
Yeah.
was actually thinking myself, the process of writing it down, but then retyping it is kind of a revising technique in itself, because I'm sure as you're reading your writing, you're typing it in, but thinking over what you've done. So it kind of gives it another layer of
I,
revision.
I'm constantly editing as I go. And then I'll go back and look at it and go, "Well, no, that wasn't what I meant." Or, "Wow, that was really good. Boy, I was a lot better than I thought." Although more often than not, it's that wasn't good and I have to redo it. And one of the things that I love is that as I'm editing as I go, it strikes ideas for future chapters and the twists and turns I want to add to the book.
Right. Yeah, there you go. And it gives you more time to think about it and just makes it that much better. So between that and the beta readers and the
Exactly.
dedication each day, it brings it to life. Yeah.
And the feedback that I get from friends is actually unbelievably helpful because when I ask them to take a look at a chapter and they come back and say, "Wow, that was really good, but why did you do this? Or why did you do that?" It
Mm,
makes me start to think about, well, you know what? Maybe that wasn't the right thing to, or maybe it was. And that takes me off in a different direction with the character. I added chapters to Death Insured after one of my friends read a few chapters and said, "You know what? I really like that, but I'm not sure how this weaves in." I said, "Oh, wait, now I can add something to it." And in fact, I had a friend who was a former New York City SWAT officer. And as a result, he actually read the whole book in draft form and said to me, "You need to change the ending." I
oh,
said, which was actually fine because when I did, I realized I liked the ending better. And it takes me someplace I didn't think about going.
so I'm assuming that new ending was something that logistically you wouldn't have thought of, but his experience kind of brought you to that
Yeah.
conclusion. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've drawn
Mhm.
on other people's experiences, his experience as a police officer, and what I wanted was his feedback on anything police related. And he said, for the most part, you're spot on. I said, great. I had a friend who was a former doctor. He gave me some help on the science because it's not my long suit. So I drew on people that I knew for some of the things I needed to do. But in the end, I also wrote what, from my experience of having read thrillers my whole life, starting with Lawrence Sanders' The First Deadly Sin, I kind of drew on the things I loved about the authors that I love to read. So,
Right, yeah, and I mean, we started this podcast talking about that, how you're inspired by other authors. So I
right.
think that's a tip anybody could kind of take home with them today. The more you read, the more techniques you pick up on.
Yep. And it's funny because the greatest compliments that I can get on the book, the ones that are the most enriching and make me want to write more. One is I get a lot of people say the book is so good I couldn't put it down. And I like that. I really enjoyed it, and the story, it never let me stop. I was grabbed in the first chapter, and someone said recently, I don't know what your style is, but it's a little bit like Patterson. I said, I'll take that. To be as successful as James Patterson would be great. I didn't do this with the idea that I wanted to be a famous writer. I did it with the idea it was a bucket list item, and along the way realized I love what I do. So I get up every morning now, and instead of thinking about business consulting, I'm thinking about ways to kill people in undetectable ways. So
Yeah, yeah, and it's all for the book,
yeah,
right?
yep, absolutely.
No, it's great, and it's clear that you have a true passion for this. You love what you
Yep,
do, and that shines through in the writing as well.
yep.
So one thing also that I think would be interesting to speak about is the tone that you use. It's your writing is described as having a crisp prose and methodological pacing. So is that also a conscious choice? Is it planned, or is it just natural from your analytical background?
It actually is a conscious choice because as
Mm.
I was writing the book, I was thinking about each chapter like it was a movie and how the movie plays out in my head as I'm putting it on paper. In order to do that, you need to have great descriptives because you want people to place themselves in the room, whether it's where the murder occurred or where the chase begins or in the car chasing the killer, whatever it may be. And the only way to do that is to have crisp wording that takes you there. Um, I don't know that it's conscious thought, I should say, but it is subconsciously. It's what the way I love to read things. So I wrote it based on the books I've read that I've fallen in love with.
Understood. Well, hey, exactly. That's what we've been circling back to here. That you find a book you love, you draw from those styles, and that's
Right.
how it makes it all that much better.
Yep.
Um, so a couple questions now. If people do want to stay up to date and be in the know about the new books that you're working on, what's the best place for them to head to and stay connected?
Okay. So my website, ajtylerauthor.com. Or my Instagram at AJ Tyler _author or AJ Tyler author on Facebook, where I'm constantly posting things. The website's actually being updated, and we're going to put a blog on there. And I'm going to release a few chapters from both the books I'm working on now. But also, we're going to be collecting emails, and I'm happy to respond to people that email me. They can send emails right now to ajtylerauthor@gmail.com, and I'm glad to respond to them about the book experience, the writing experience, or anything that I'm working on. I was starting to say, so the next book is called Debt Discharge, and then I'm working on another book in a totally different genre about a man who's dating later in life. His kids are grown. His wife has passed on. It is not biographical, but it's sort of biographical, but it's told humorously, very tongue in cheek, along the lines of Jonathan Tropper's This Is Where I Leave You. And the title of the book is called Please Don't Call Me a Nice Guy. I Was Hoping to Date You.
Oh, okay. Well, very cool.
Uh,
That's awesome. Is there a certain release for that one, or is it?
so Debt Discharge, which is the next Alan Moore book, will be out the sometime in the fourth quarter of this year. I'm working arduously on it every day, writing and editing as I go. Please Don't Call Me a Nice Guy, sometime in the late first quarter, early second quarter of next year. So it's been and totally different style, totally different genre, but it's been a fun process writing it because I've been collecting stories, not just my own, but stories from friends who've had unique dating experiences as they've gotten older. So
That's really cool. It's kind of like a tell-all from you and your friends then.
yes, yes,
And
exactly.
I'm sure it's gonna help a ton of different people though too, because everyone has their own experiences to relate to, but also to learn from also. So really exciting stuff. We're gonna put the links in the description box of this podcast today. So if you're listening, you can go ahead and click on over and get connected. But we're not quite done yet here because I do have to say, you know, this is an author's podcast. So what advice would you give to other professionals who are wanting to be a novelist just like you and making that transition? What is something that you wish you knew that
So
now?
So I tell everybody that says to me, I want to write a book, I want to write a novel, I want to write a business book, whatever it is, every day, get up and write, whether it's on a pad of paper, whether it's on a computer, get up and write a story or write notes and journal. And from that journaling, figure out where you want to go with the story. During the time that I was writing Death Insured, there were days I got up and said, I'm going to write a chapter today. And I only got 3 sentences done and I was stuck or I didn't know where I wanted to go. But the one constant was I knew some point during the day, walk, clear my head, think about it a little bit. And the next morning, I'm going to get up and sit in front of that computer with a pot of coffee or sit in front of that pad with a pot of coffee at a table and just start writing. Number one, never give up on the dream of doing it. But
Mhm.
as you're trying to make that dream a reality, get up every day and write and push yourself to do something. And my biggest fear, honestly, when I was doing this was I would give the book to people. I'd give them chapters and they'd say, oh my God, this is awful. Why do you think you want to do this? And with each person telling me, no, this is great. When do I get to the next chapter? Was the encouragement to keep writing.
Right. Well, there you go. You can't give up on it. I love that piece of advice too. You can't just say, oh, it's too hard, or I don't have the time to, or you keep procrastinating with it. You just gotta commit. And that's clearly what you did as well, whatever
It's
method it might be.
it's like anything else. I mean, if you want to be a great golfer, you have to go to the driving range. If you want to be a great chef, you have to go into the kitchen. If you want to be a writer, even if it's not a great writer, but you want to finish it, you have to force yourself to do the things that sometimes you'd rather not do. So,
Exactly. Yeah, you just gotta push yourself. I love it.
exactly.
All right. Well, honestly, this has been a really exciting conversation. I love all of your tips. I can't believe you write your books on paper. That's just hilarious, but it works. And I'm sure there is some science behind that too. Like the more that you use your hands, the better it'll be. Who knows? But
Well, I'm sure some psychologist is going to watch this and have a field day trying to figure out why, but it's okay. It works for me. And it makes it easy for me to flow. I'm sure there's probably a better way to do it, and I'll get a bunch of emails. And if I can come up with a better way, the books get out faster. But this is the only way I know that makes sense for me.
yeah, and I love it though. And that was not the only amazing piece of advice today, too. You offered a lot of great insights. So I just thank you so much for coming on. It's been a true pleasure.
Danielle, thank you so much for having me. And to everybody, if you can go on to Get Death Insured, I promise you, you'll love the story. I've had very few people that haven't said to me, I can't wait to read the next one. So
Right. Well, awesome. There you have it, everybody. We're going to put the links in the description box. Click on over, get connected, everybody. And just remember, whether you're also analyzing spreadsheets or managing restaurants, running your own business, the
yep.
experiences you're gaining can be the foundation for the book that you later write, just like we talked about today in our show. So amazing stuff. Get to it, get writing, and we'll see you on the next time, the next episode of the Authors on Mission podcast.
Thank you, Danielle. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.